So I had to write this introduction for Melbourne Knowledge Week when I was talking on a panel about the future of work, and they wanted it to be futuristic. So it's a bit hard for me to introduce myself always because I do a lot of different things. I'm seeing some familiar faces here. Every one of them I know, they've seen me in a totally different context. I know that. So my company, Goodness Triangle, is where I do my own experiment. Like I do web development and stuff like that for a living, but social enterprise, building my own projects, trying out things. That's what I do. But I want to introduce myself also with organizations I work with. I asked
Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony. I thought your name was Jack. Okay, the first link. So I work with these days. I work with DTI, Distributed Technologies Institute, based in Melbourne, which I will probably talk more about distributed technology in this talk. That's where we research, we consult, and we do trainings about distributed technologies. I'll get back to that later. I also, like if you bring up the GovHack website, I do a few volunteering activities as well. I'm a chief technology architect at GovHack. Who here doesn't know what GovHack is? Okay, very few. Okay, cool. So GovHack is one of the first and the biggest Australian hackathon. Hackathon is a very intense competition that brings innovators to do stuff, and every hackathon has its own theme. GovHack tries to utilize open data to bring applications that would help all of us. It happens on the same time in Australia and New Zealand, over 40 plus locations. It's an amazing thing. You missed it this year. If you didn't know about it, make sure you catch the next year. And I'm also helping Ozia. If you could put it on the stage, on the screen. So Open Source Industry Australia, and we're trying to make it less scary for bigger business, or especially government, to open source solutions, which is interestingly still a problem. And also, if you Silicon Beach, if you could bring up Silicon Beach.
Which one?
Silicon Beach is the community. Yeah, that one works too.
Oh.
Yeah. Just to have something on the page. I also forgot to say hello to people who are watching it live. Not sure how many. Do we know how many?
Do we know how many? I don't know.
No? And also those who I've asked them to watch their replay as well. Hello. So Silicon Beach is a community run by community for startups and innovators. It's a group of different communities across Australia. In Melbourne, one is growing very fast. 2 years ago, started in Geelong. Then last year, Launceston and Ballarat as well. If you could help us later to expand that one. And yeah, it's a cool, hopefully we have one in Gippsland as well. Okay, so let's jump to the talk. I didn't prepare a slide because I just want to talk, but I wish I did for these few slides. Okay, when I was told that it's a digital innovation conference, and especially it's the first one in this area, I thought maybe I use my time to review what I understand about the impact of technology in the past on small business, where I understand it's at now, and where I believe it's going to head in the future. And also, I have to mention that my observations and thoughts are mainly coming from the technical background. I may have opinions about how the economy or business works, but I'm no expert in that. So if you can correct me, please, by all means, do it. Feel free to interrupt me. And also, I was watching the Facebook Live when I was on the way here, when Leo asked everyone how many people are small business here, which I saw the majority was. Is that right? Majority of small business, that's great. Because that was going to be my focus. All right, let's get started. So I want to start before internet. Okay, so before internet, small business basically meant a local business. So small in terms of revenue or in terms of number of employees, whatever a small business would mean, would be a local business. And it would be in competition with bigger companies that, because of globalization, they had their hands everywhere. And with the help of transport and automation, mechanical automation, that was the disadvantage that a small business had. And we all know that when internet came, we had small business all of a sudden had two major advantages over other bigger businesses. The first one was that because of internet and connectivity, small businesses for the first time could connect to the end users directly, right? And basically bypass all the middlemen. That changed the whole way that the business is being operated. I'm talking about this concept you may hear as a customer experience, CX, and we all know that all the businesses are now focusing on customers, and the main drive for that has been the internet that has forced everyone to do that. And it's been fun at the very first years because everyone who picked this idea could accelerate their business, but now it's become tough for everyone because now everyone's doing it, and the expectation of customers are very high, and we know that it's so hard to grab customers' attention. So the first takeaway right now is that think of your small business and think of, ask yourself questions. Are you utilizing the full potential of technology to connect to your customers, your end users, and not only that, anyone who is affected by your operation, the operation of your business? Because there are a lot of ways that you can do it these days, and every year something is in terms of media and in terms of branding and everything. So are you utilizing that? So this is one of the easiest things that you could do. You don't really need to be that futuristic. You can just stay tuned with what's possible now and how you can receive feedback and connect to your customers. If you're not doing it, you're losing it to your competitors because competitors are doing it. Before I move on to the second point, I just remembered because I was in a conference last week in Sydney, and they brought this up about focusing on customers. One of the things that normally all the businesses are advised to do and are trying to do is to focusing on finding problems that customers have, like pain points and customer journey and everything, to shorten the customer journey. One of the good insights that I got from that conference was that it's very important to realize that what we're doing when our approach is to find out customers' problem and solving them, we are limiting ourselves in our existing business model. That was the statistics was given there in that conference. It's not mine, but it was told that the average lifespan of a business model has been 60 years. Now it is 16 years, right? So it means that a business model that is proven to be working, it just lasts for 16 years. After 16 years, this business model is not really will not be working the way it used to work. So whoever who is using that business model have to reiterate. In 5 years' time, it's going to be 6 years, right? So the thing is, if you're focusing too much on your existing operations and trying to solve customers' problem in the way you operate inside the way you operate now, very soon you may put your heads up and see everything has changed. So basically the message is don't try to optimize too much a business model that is shrinking already. So it's good to optimize the business model you have, but it's also important to try out other venues or other way of doing business. So let's move on to the second point. The second point that internet allowed gave advantage to small business was by allowing small business to reach out to customers that they would not be able to do it otherwise. Okay, so this is obvious, but I want us to conceptualize it in this way. In the past, the principle for the economy has been the location or geography. So you had a store, every small business, to operate their business, they had to reach out to their customers. But now, with internet, it sounded like that now we didn't have that barrier, but we could think of it as if there is a new dimension to this. So there is a new location, which is not geographical. Now, this location, we can assume this island are people who have access to internet. Now, they're all our customers. If we move there, we can be part of that ecosystem. The reason I'm conceptualizing this is that it's not just one instance, it's happening in other instances as well. It's important that we recognize these new habitats that are being created and ecosystems or economies that are being developed inside those habitats. So if we are one of the first businesses there, then we have that advantage of being the first. For example, just like a random example, like mobile phones, right? So it's now there's a marketplace, and you can think of it as anyone who has a mobile phone anywhere in the world looks like they are in that island. If you move there, if you have some sort of service or product, or if you somehow deliver your services through mobile apps, you have access to that whole economy. And whatever that comes to that economy, you can catch that wave wherever it's going. So, okay, let me put my thought. So far we covered the past, and that's how it's been going so far. Now let's move on to the present. The present, still, when I go to places and they talk about digital, still I see that people are focusing on digital media and stuff like that, which I believe these are all the things that we have seen how it works. But in the meantime, the past few years, another thing was happening that we did not notice, and we have noticed the result of it, which is the emergence of huge monster technology companies, right? Like Google, Facebook, all these big companies. But my point being is that they are not technology companies. What makes them huge and what has allowed them to become huge in the past few years is been the fact that as part of every one of us operating in this new wave, which has been internet, we've been producing very precious materials that we did not know it's precious, and these companies knew, and that is data. So these huge companies are data companies. That's what makes them huge. And so takeaway for now for us is that we should look at the data. Data is very important because these years we've managed to, because of the advances in different technologies, storage technologies, processing technologies, we've managed to use our science that we had from decades ago, which was artificial intelligence. Now we can use the data to have an actual practical artificial intelligence. So data is very, very, very valuable now these days. And so it's important we should follow that. But there is a problem here. The problem for us, small business or small actors in this game, is that we don't have access to that data. And those who do have access to that data, they're already becoming huge and huge. And small business, I don't know exactly what kind of small businesses you are, but who here is, can I ask, is worried about Amazon coming to Australia next year? Can I ask? Anyone's worried? Okay, so one person here. Okay, I guess they're more digital. Can I ask what your business is?
I work in IT security, yeah.
Yeah, so why are you worried then?
From Amazon, because they'll push out a lot of the small businesses that are around that make it difficult and challenging for small businesses.
Exactly. And so you know the reason for that? Is the massive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. The actual reason is that Amazon, the main advantage that Amazon has over other players is that Amazon already knows what is happening, and they can optimize their resources to the best. And also they're utilizing the old school automation as well to its very best. But the main thing is that they know exactly what the demand is and where the demand is, and they can be very efficient in that. So they have very low cost. But there's another thing that most people don't know, is that Amazon, not only that they know what is going to happen, they also have another advantage that a small business could never compete with, which is because of their dominance over the whole industry. They have 50% of the whole online retail industry in America, for example. They can influence and change where the demand is going to be. So this is something that no one else can compete with, right? So now we're getting more towards the future aspect. So we have to, as a small business, we have to be more conscious about the precious material that we have, which is the data. There are different ways that we could utilize it. So first of all, we can be more smart about the data that we could collect as part of our operation, right? I can like talk to you one by one. There are a lot that every business can collect out of their operation that could generate insights for themselves that they're not aware of. So this is one thing that you could do for yourself. The other thing that a small business could do collectively is to share their data with each other, which is not possible for individuals, every small business, but I hope that there will be some initiatives that make it possible that all small businesses in the same industry or similar industries, they would share the data with each other and use the insight that they collect to battle the bigger businesses that have disadvantage. My main point is that this is how I wanted to phrase it, but I forgot. The technology, we mainly know technology as internet these days, or whatever is emerged from it, has been in the favor of a small business so far, but it's now the direction is totally the opposite because of the very fact of data and artificial intelligence. And it's important that we are wise about it and we do things that we can. So this was what I wanted to say. It's small businesses are again going to have a disadvantage. As I said, the one thing is solutions for that for the future. One is that small business collectively work with each other and share data. The other is that if we could have a technology that makes it possible to collect information and analyze information in a distributed way, then we won't need any central company like Amazon or Google. Then the problem will be solved. And that's one of the reasons that I'm very excited working with companies like DTI or institutes like DTI, because these are the technologies that they're working on. So I know that I have one more point that I forgot, but I'm happy to take questions if there is any.
Do we have any questions for Alex?
Yeah, thank you.
I know you said data is basically locked up in big companies.
Yeah.
But are there any companies that share data?
What was the question?
Is there a way that small businesses can access some of the data these big businesses have? Is there a company that shares data?
Okay, yeah, very good question. You just reminded me what my point was. I wanted to talk about the concept of data ownership. At the moment, it's very hard, and those ways are not naturally happening in the industry, because you would expect normally when there is a need, when there is a demand, it will happen. But it's not happening because at the moment we don't have the concept of data ownership. So data at the moment data ownership is not recognized at all in the technology and in the law and nowhere. And for better or worse, those who can bring this concept into practice are not really interested, right? Government maybe they're slow, that's not what they're not interested, the best case scenario. But bigger companies like Google, Amazon, and other companies, they are not interested at all that this concept happens. And that is one of the barriers that we're not seeing services that would allow you as a small business to easily capture and own all those data that there are ways that you can capture it, right? But you have to get out of your way to capture all those information to use it for yourself. So there's no easy answer for that. The solution will be our demand to make this happen or bring this term to actual everyday conversation of the policymakers, that the data ownership, the data should be owned and under control of whoever who is making it, whether it's a company, whether it's a person, whoever they are. And the only way that the data is being used has to be under their permission and under control, which people normally mistake this with privacy. It has nothing to do with privacy. It's about the fact that the data is the most valuable assets that businesses have and will have in the future. So what you can do, you can talk to technologists or people in IT, like this gentleman next to you, and ask how I'm using these services at the moment. I'm using this service for my email campaigns, the social media stuff, and other things, whatever regarding your business. How can I collect this information as part of my processes? You can start doing it. This is the second point that I wanted to say, and I'm talking to some businesses to do this. You don't need to necessarily utilize the data you're collecting right now, because you may not have access to the technology that would allow you, or maybe the technology is not here at all. But if you collect information right now, in 5-year times, the technology may be accessible for everyone, or you may be able to pay for that to get the insights, or maybe very soon there is a union between all the cafes in Victoria that say, hey, whoever who has data, we want to collect all the data and we want to give you insights about exactly what's happening, so you can be very strategic about your business. Then if you have had the data, then you can use it. So this is the other point. It's a lot of even big businesses are totally missing out on this concept, because just because they don't see how they can use the data, they're not capturing it, which is a total loss. Because if you capture it now, you can just put it somewhere, and in a few years' time, opportunity may come. And then that will be a very valuable asset for you.
Cool. Questions? Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. Yeah. Very cool. Any other questions?
No, it sounds like
cool.
It's either very clear or very vague.
I'm pretty sure it's very
Okay, so let's do something. How many minutes we have?
We've got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes. Okay, can I get some feedbacks about how it could be, why it was vague, for example? A feedback from audience.
It's a very technical subject. Yeah.
Yes, okay, that's a good one. Can I? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That might not be doing justice to the concepts you're talking about.
You mean it's not practical for small businesses?
No, I mean, the forum you're in a short time frame to talk about it is probably not suitable for the scope of the topic.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's a good one. I tried to really compress things. I was feeling like that, yeah, myself.
I love the idea of this sharing data to offset the amount of data collection that's done by bigger corporations.
Correct. Yeah, cool. Well, at least I kind of maybe talked about it. Maybe it wasn't efficient, but at least I brought it up. But thanks for the feedback. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to expand on that and say,
Yeah.
it's like you've done the 15-minute introduction, now we need to do the next 6-hour session. Actually getting to apply this. My thought was, it's like when you do Google AdWords,
Mm-hmm.
and you start filtering down, and you've got the options there to say, I want people interested in these
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
topics. That's kind of the data you're talking about.
Yeah.
Facebook has all of that.
Yeah,
We can use it, but only through their funnel. But you're sort of saying,
True.
as a small business, you want that actually names and
Okay.
all that information for yourself in your business.
yeah. So good example.
Capture that.
Very good example. Like we are like little role players that are like under the shadow of the bigger business. Like these, they call data lords, right? But the good thing is that they've become so massive that even big businesses are being threatened by them. So we don't really. They are already trying to kind of counteract the effects. For example, he talked about like advertisement industry. and Google ads and Facebook ads. That's what you talked about, right? So there is I know this, my very good friend, he works in one of these digital agencies that run advertisement campaign for big businesses. I forgot their name. I'm not really interested in this stuff. I forgot the name. But they are the biggest in Australia by far. That's what I know. And he was talking to me about the fact that how upset they are about Google and Facebook and the way they handle this. Because of course, because they're collecting all the information, there is no visibility, there's no transparency. So you don't know where your ad is being displayed. It might pop up in a porn website, you never know. Or maybe, and it damages your brand. Not only you've paid for it, you've paid for damage your brand. Or maybe it turned out that recently that Facebook is counting videos that's just been like played for a few seconds as a played video, which hasn't given any value to your business, for example. Well, you never know that. And it's very interesting because it's very similar to the move that we had about open source software, right? 10, 20 years ago. There was the same problems, but back then, internet was enabling collaboration in open source community to become bigger. And now, like we know how, where Microsoft says, this is Microsoft motto these days. They say Microsoft loves Linux. If you would say this like 10 years ago to anyone, like, come on, right? But this is reality. It's literally what it is. They could do that because there was no barrier. But at the moment, it's so hard to defeat this new phenomenon, which is data, because they are on the way to the progress. And they are leading the technology. This is the other problem. Amazon is in retail. Amazon is one of the very interesting entrepreneurs. This guy has got two totally separate business, totally successful. Amazon and also AWS, Amazon Web Services. Now Amazon is leading technology as well. Google is leading technology as well. Look at the logos. Any technology conference or startup, even a startup conferences you go, you see all these big logos. So they're leading it and they have influence. And they have no interest in pushing ideas that would kind of allow distribution of this wealth that they've tapped into it, which is a problem that we have to, okay, getting back to that point, these bigger agencies, they're trying to solve that problem. Now those agencies are interested in looking at other options that would allow them to advertise without needing to go to a central place. So they see the value of decentralized solution or distributed solutions. Thanks for the good expansion.
I won't ask more questions because I'm sure there are more, because it's very interesting, digging deep into the data mining aspect of the internet. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
appreciate
no
your
problem.
talk. Thank
No
you
worries.
very much.
Thank you. Oh.